Hey there. Welcome to episode 10 of the Boob Report podcast, powered by Helix Interactive. Today I'm hanging out with Ariana. I'm not even going to try and pronounce her last name. An embodied leadership coach, Ariana loves to think outside the box, challenge outdated paradigms, and create new strategies to achieve amazing results. Let's get started. All right. All right. Welcome, Ariana. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode of the Boob Report podcast. We truly appreciate it. Very excited to have you here.
Oh, I am so excited to be here, Michelle. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really look forward to our conversation. And
yeah, we got lots to talk about today.
Yeah,
we really do. So why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself and, diving in as little or as much as you want about your breast cancer journey.
Okay, great. Well, I am a wellness leadership coach, a mother of three, and a rancher and a professional equestrian. So I have spent I'm a zoologist as well. So I've spent most of my life immersed in the natural world and bringing leaders and people who are going through change and transition into a more natural setting for their own healing. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that for 30 years, and I've worked with thousands of people from all walks of life, and predominantly women. And so I'm well versed in just the emotional changes, transformation, transitions, changes. And, in 2014, I actually got diagnosed with breast cancer the first time in 2009. Mm-hmm. And it was about 3 years after a very significant divorce, in a marriage of 19 years, where I think I accumulated a lot of emotional trauma over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And I had felt before then, like ever since I started getting my mammograms at the age of 40, I was always sort of on a cancer watch. I had atypical lobular hyperplasia, which some people might identify with. And so it was always like, I was getting mammograms every 6 months. And before 2006, when the divorce started, I just really felt like I was being chased by something. And I actually was writing poems about, where I live is one of the highest breast cancer rates in the country. So I was intuitively already like intuiting this pending time. And in 2009, I had, it was like my first breast cancer. So it was, lobular and ductal carcinoma in situ. Mm-hmm. So I had a number of surgeries, with ending at, you have the needle biopsy and then the surgery biopsy, and then you end up with the other, so it was a partial mastectomy. It was really early, so I didn't need to do anything else. But that was a wake-up call. It was really scary. And I, really didn't want to lose my breasts at that time because I really love my boobs. Yeah, and so
right? I know I got mine. I was diagnosed on my left side, and I was like, really? That's my favorite boob. Why?
Oh, yeah. Right. And so even just how that went down is a whole story in itself, which in terms of not being really taken care of, in terms of being informed. And so I really started right away, like, I need to be responsible for my own health. Mm-hmm. And my father's a physician who always has told me that. And so I just got myself really educated. I already was eating organic ever since, I started having my kids, which I thought I was eating organic, but honestly, there was a lot of things that I wasn't eating that were organic in hindsight, but, and I was healthy, but I was also on this huge stress wagon, after the divorce. Like, I had this ranch, I had my own business, I was still raising my kids, I was trying to, get money in and just go. And I started a cafe with my daughter in town, because my leadership business was at that time largely international, with people coming for 3 weeks at a time, maybe a week to 3 weeks, in a group setting to study, which is also very intense. But I wanted to be part of my local economy and help my daughter. So we started this cafe, and, I was just go. And then I met my future husband, and We started a wool mill in town because we had sheep. And so here I am running a ranch, my leadership business, still got some kids at home, a cafe, and another like retail wool production business. Mm-hmm. And the month after I got married, I got diagnosed with cancer for a second time. Oh. And I was actually in my equine program, we're just all just like opening ourselves up and just getting rid of all this old trauma. Mm-hmm. And I really thought I'd been already removing ancestral trauma and all these things for for over 20 years. And I just remember it was 6:00 in the evening and I got the call from the surgeon. And she said, you could just hear her voice. And it was like, you have lobular carcinoma. It was invasive lobular carcinoma. Mm-hmm. And it just hit me so hard. And I just went out in the field and laid down and just, at first I was mad and I was angry and I was crying. And then I was like, oh no, no, this is not okay. And so I ended up, having another surgery with a lumpectomy. So I still kind of have my breast, but and then I had radiation, and that the combination of the different surgeries that it takes to get the diagnosis and then the radiation just knocked me out, Michelle. It just it took me down. And I remember somebody said, well, it's going to take you, the first person I went to see was sort of an alternative, said, it's going to take you 3 years to heal from this. And I thought, no way, not me. Like I can do anything. Mm-hmm. Kind of thing, like, where there's a will, there's a way. But over time I was like, okay. And I remember my first book I read was David Shapiro's Anti-Cancer. And it was really about, there's 3 things, there's your diet, your exercise, and your lifestyle. Uh-huh. And I had fallen off my diet being in the cafe. I was eating wheat, which I'm actually allergic to because our specialty was homemade bread. That's another long story how we got there, but and just food that the leftovers that people didn't want. So I was really out of my diet at that point. So obviously I knew how to fix that. That's easy. But I knew that lifestyle was going to be my most challenging thing, and because I knew I was addicted to stress. Because I am good at stress. I love I love it when it's like so intense and like, and then you got it. And then at the end, you solve it, you solve the problem and you're like, yeah. And I was like, wow, Ariana, you got to change that. And I knew I had no idea how to do that. So that was the beginning of my most significant healing journey. And, there was just all kinds of different things that I learned about. And I got really involved in the plant medicine world too. Like I'm fortunate that I live in a very natural setting. Mm-hmm. And again, just diving, like I literally would spend almost 3 hours a day studying, researching plants, breast cancer, and really like research, like not just the first fad, but if I could see research that was consistently showing that these particular herbs were really good, mm-hmm. And like it was interesting because I would look up the breastcancer.org and they would say things that were like, lamb is bad for you. Well, another one would say, well, lamb is good for you because it has anti-breast cancer pieces in it. And we have sheep, so things like that. Lots of books. And then interestingly enough, I had started journaling after as I was going through this divorce, to try to understand what was happening and how did I get there. And I've been writing this journal for like 14 years. And it's done. It's at the final editor. Of course, you always say that, right? So, but it through the process of journaling was the most, was a huge, profound healing for me to slowly, little by little, be able to go back and see what, I'm a very, in the front, I'm a very successful person. I'm a very powerful woman. And at the same time, I was really acquiescing a big part of who I am. I call it my spirit self.
Yeah.
And letting people take my power away. And then, that was a big piece of uncovering that in my journal, and, coinciding with this other piece that's one of the significant pieces that I've really learned that I really want to share is that the importance of self-love.
Yes.
Because that was the thing that I so didn't want to do. Like, I had a good friend who was actually, interestingly, my sheep shearer, but he was also like, had a coach because he'd healed himself from Lyme's disease. And I talked to him right away. And he just, the first thing he says is, Ariana, you need to love yourself. And I just was so mad. I was like, no way. I know that he's right. And that's the one thing I don't want to do. Can you relate to that?
Oh, yeah.
No?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, as women, we are, I don't know if it's innate or how you're raised or society or whatever combination of all that, is that you're supposed to be taking care of other people. You're supposed to be loving other people. For some reason, we put ourselves last. So I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So that was huge. And so I created a lot of practices for myself, what I call somatic practices, because that's part of what I do professionally, is that I know that it's not enough to just change your mind and just try to tell yourself you love yourself, that you actually have to retrain your body, because our body holds all of our experience and history, before thought.
Right.
And so I created practices for myself to trick my mind so that my body could recondition that response. And, so there was sort of the, the mantra of, I love you, I love myself, or whatever. But it was like, I would put a smile on my face and say it to myself. And at first it felt kind of phony, but after a while, and I would walk in nature when I was doing it. And that made a huge difference. Because it can start with like, I love you tree. I started really thanking my body. Like, I really started to see how much I've thrown my body at my life and how hard I've used my body. And no wonder, that, it's like, if you're not listening to your spirit self, that your original self, or if you're squashing that part of yourself and you're performing or for everybody else or taking care of everybody else, and which is, like you said, that's what we know how to do. Then if you're not listening and to that inner core self, your body, the organs and other things will start to break down. And when I got the breast cancer for the second time, I was like, I'm just a mirror of Mother Earth. Like, Mother Earth, basically, we could say, has breast cancer, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you don't take care of the vessel, of where you are, it is amazing the damage it can do to not only, physically, but mentally as well. You're so right on that. Well, you and I talked about this in a previous conversation, and this really hit home for me, is that a lot of us use stress as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
That we don't feel like we're successful enough unless we're stressed out. And that hit home for me big time, because I remember before I was diagnosed, I was going 12, 14-hour days, networking, running my marketing business, doing this, doing that, coming home, collapsing into bed, not being physically present, for my husband or our son and daughter. And, just living this life full of stress, and then trying to make my home perfect, because a lot of people, know this, I'm bonus mom, I'm stepmom. So whenever the kids would come back over, I knew when they weren't with us that things weren't exactly great, and so when they came back, I tried to make things as perfect as possible. for them, which just made it more stressful that for them, it made it more stressful for me. And it was just ridiculous. And being able to go through this journey and talk to, my daughter now, especially, it just, it was eye opening. I kind of look at the cancer as a wake up call. It was like, come on, you idiot, what are you doing? Stop trying to do so much and just stop and smell the roses, if you will.
Absolutely. Like one of the first books I picked up the second time I went to an herb store, because we have access to all the traditional stuff, right? It's all there. They wanted to put me on tamoxifen. I was like, and they showed me all the statistics and 10% of 10%. And I'm like, I'm a scientist. So I'm like, that doesn't really seem like, no, I'm going to try it another way first. Anyway, so it goes herb store. So the first book I picked up was Susan Weed's book. What's it called? Breast Cancer, Breast Health.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened it up, and the first thing it said is, what if I told you that having cancer is absolutely what's right? Because what's the first thing you think of that you're going to have to give up?
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately was, the first thing I have to give up is how hard I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
And this piece about just doing so many things and being so busy. And she said, and that's why this is absolutely what's right for you. And she goes, I know you're probably not going to like what I'm saying. Right. And it was true. But I knew she was right. And that again, same confirmation, the lifestyle changes. And I gave myself permission to learn how to do this. I knew I didn't know how to do it. I knew how to do stress.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to delink from stress.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give myself some time to figure this out, and learning what are the precursors that are happening before I get into stress. So, being a zoologist and doing the work that I do, it's so funny. It's like right in my face. I always see ourselves as an animal body. And so when we're in stress, our body doesn't know that we think it's cool or we're handling it. It thinks stress is like all these stress hormones and chemicals are going on. It's like your body's thinking it might die any minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so that creates all of these other autoimmune things, including the cancers. And so how do we change that? Well, we learn how to listen to the body. And so I could start to feel, it took time.
Yeah.
First, I feel like, okay, I'm really stressed out now. I'm feeling emotional. I'm feeling like I want to react to something. And then I would just say, okay, stop, take some deep breaths, go outside and take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just forget what I was stressing about.
Right.
It was that simple, really. Because when you're outside in nature and you're looking at the trees or the flowers or just going in your garden,
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing the things, being outside, feeling the air, all of a sudden I wasn't thinking about that anymore, stressed out about that. And then I could come back in and figure out how I wanted to deal with that. And then the self-care piece was huge. Like I had a very rigorous morning, with the right foods, preparing the food I wanted for the day, the quietness, the walk. And I mean, it would take me like almost half a day.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, in our world of go, 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 that's right. That's like,
that's not
half a day. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I don't want anybody to know it takes me that long to get ready to do something. But anyway, that's a lesson learned. I just really want to be able to put that out there for anybody that's going through cancer, or even for the people, the loved ones who have somebody going through cancer. Yeah. That it's really, that's because I would feel guilty. Like it looks like I'm not doing anything. Mm-hmm. When I'm doing my self-care. My husband would be out working and I'd be in the house, like taking care of myself, like felt really guilty about that. But it was like being the mom. It's like, if you don't take care of yourself, if you die, then you're not going to be there for the kids. Right.
Exactly.
And so what you care about is the kids. So you're going to take care of yourself for that.
Exactly. Well, and I think that we need to get to the point, women and men absolutely need to get to the point that you allow yourself that time for, self-healing and, a mental break and things like that. I know that over these last 5 years, my husband and I have talked about it quite a bit, and he takes time for himself. He loves to play volleyball. So Friday nights, he goes and plays volleyball with his friends. That's his release. He loves to work on cars and planes. He's very, mechanically inclined. He loves that. That's how he relieves his stress.
Yeah.
Mine is, I like to decorate the house. I like to paint a room. I like to go for a hike. You find what works for you. And then you need to get to the point to be not apologetic for it, that this is my time. Go so far as to schedule that in your calendar so that it is your time exclusively for you.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You brought that up because as I'm coming to the completion of my journal, at the end, so the journal it's called The Water Calls, One Woman's Journey to Reclaim Her Dignity and Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lifetime of fighting for my dignity,
Right.
and for that emotional freedom. And so coming to the end of the book, so at the end of the book, finally, I set myself free. I'm setting everybody else free. I'm rescuing everybody else my whole life, and the reflection in the mirror was, but you're saving me, but you're not saving yourself. Because
Right.
animals, the creatures, and there are animals, are characters in my book, and I'm saving them, and they're always giving me these lessons back to me. And I do listen to those messages myself. So, at the end, so what I've been doing lately in my work, even when I am working with women in particular, is very simple. It's a very simple statement. I am Ariana. I stand tall without apology.
I love that.
And and so when I do that, whenever I feel I need to do it, and it helps me to stand in my dignity and claim myself, and nobody can throw me off, and then that whole piece without apology. So working with groups of women and stuff, or, sometimes over periods of days, every time we change something, if we go into another room or we walk outside, we make that statement, and then we'll catch each other apologizing for everything. And then we'll kind of say, hey, remember we said we weren't going to apologize? And then we all laugh. And then we start saying like, oh my God, I'm saying sorry all the time.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's I think the one thing that I struggled with big time with my diagnosis and eventual need to seek counseling. I'm totally transparent about the depression that I went through, was that in my mind, I had let my husband and my children down. I was a failure for getting breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
As ridiculous as that sounds, that's how I felt.
Well, and that's, the first place I went was what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Like, I thought I'm doing all these great things. I've made this huge contribution in the world. Why? So and then it's like, no, I'm just part of the bigger, I'm part of the earth. The earth is, and for me anyway, is asking me to listen, to pay attention. And how are you going to heal yourself?
Right.
Because this is how others, healing ourselves in relationship to Mother Earth now, because I am a wellness coach and leadership coach. And I've seen it for a long time, but I was kind of afraid to talk about it because, people might think I'm weird, which again is that self-conscious thing where you're walking off your own, line of who you are. And again, like your own dignity, that I'm just my own unique person. This is who I am. But I see that as we're working and healing with each other people, I see the difference between healing ourselves in reciprocal relation with healing the earth. And so as we're healing and we're, inviting and thanking the earth and all of the resources that the earth provides for us, and incorporate that into our healing in a sort of give back way, it's really powerful.
Yeah, I think so. We could go on and on about this. I think our end goal with this is that it's okay to, take the time to just really take care of yourself. No matter what journey you're going through, focusing on yourself and self-care and making sure that mentally and physically you're on the right path for you is very important. Men, women, children, we all need to learn that in some way.
Yeah. And taking a stand for yourself, your place, and also like, giving yourself time to do some of the deeper emotional work,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Oh, I highly recommend therapy. I'm still in therapy. I love my therapist. It's awesome to have a great support group and have friends, and my husband is awesome, but my therapist, there's just that relationship there that I can be so open and honest, with her. It has been a lifesaver for me.
Because it's really different. And I think that's part of why I really love that you're doing this podcast, is that when I was diagnosed with the breast cancer both times, I remember thinking, I'm not going to hide this. I'm going to talk about it. People, how are you? Well, guess what? I'm going, whatever, and there were other women in my community who didn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then when I started talking about it, they go like, oh, I had breast cancer. And I'm like, you did? Yeah. And like, I had breast cancer 20 years ago. Like I said, we live in a region of a lot of breast cancer. Uh-huh. And then I didn't realize how many women had it. And then there was immediate sort of recognition from another person who had breast cancer in particular. And of course, for my children, I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to act all strong, like I'm fine, because there is like, and I did see like some friends sort of fade away, mm-hmm. like, well, she's going to die, so I might as well not invest in that friendship anymore. Yeah. And other people who were bringing me chicken soup. And so that was fascinating to see who were really my friends. Yeah. in that. And I remember, when I was hosting a leadership conference, and one of the women had another person take her, be the speaker, because she was recovering from breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And this is in between my cancers. And I remember thinking, gosh, that's going to be really sad if she passes away. Like, she's got so much influence, and then she's still here to this day. So like, why was I assuming, that's why when I got my second cancer, I was like, oh, that's why some people are pulling away, because maybe they just think I better not be invested in that. And so
that's, I don't know. To go on that point, you and I talked about this, and I found it fascinating. In a great segue is there are groups of people that pull away versus dive in wholeheartedly. Yeah. And it's when they find out a person, a friend, a loved one, a significant other is diagnosed with breast cancer or some, life-altering diagnosis. Yeah. I mean, my husband's quite a bit younger than I am, and that's irrelevant. Like, I didn't want to talk to him about my fears and my anxieties. And so finding somebody that I could talk to about that. And one of my best friends has really nasty recurrent breast cancer, and she's a single mom was a 10-year-old, now 14, and father died, in a tragic accident, and she's fighting for her life. But we talk all the time, because she can be as raw as she needs to be, because some of her friends are like, well, God, you sure have changed. You're being a little too direct, or you're not being nice. That was significant for me. Like, I'll share this little story. I don't know if I shared it with you before, but I was going to my middle daughter's wedding. We were all going to Mexico. Mm-hmm. My ex was there. We were all going to be staying there for like 4 days. So we're all kind of in each other's face. He was with a person who I really, really don't like, and I don't trust, for long stories. Yeah. And I thought, well, I'll just have to deal with her at the wedding. Well, no, to deal with her at the airport. We had to drive in the same car together. We had to go everywhere together at every meal. And I was just like, oh my God. Yeah. my daughter's wedding, put on a smiley face. And I'm, just trying to work. It just brought up a lot of this past trauma with my ex. And so at one point, one of my kids said, we were walking, and I think it was a couple, and they were all talking, and they said, Mom, can't you just like pretend and be nice? And I just Wow.
Yeah, it hit me. He's even hitting me now. And
Uh-huh.
I just took a deep breath and I said, thank you for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you something I've learned from having breast cancer is if I'm just nice like that and pretend that this person hasn't really hurt me, then I'm betraying myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm disrespecting myself. And it's one thing I've learned from breast cancer. I will not do that anymore. I'm
Right.
not going to make somebody else not feel uncomfortable because whatever. And so I said, I will, as long as she doesn't try to talk to me and look at me, everything will be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll have my own boundaries with it. I'm not going to put out a bad vibe, but I'm not going to smile and pretend that she's okay in my
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
period. So, and that was cool. It was just well stated, wasn't dramatic, wasn't emotionally reactive, but they could feel my stand. That's something I've really learned. And that's my friend and like the other friends that I have that have gone through the cancer. So it is neat to have friends that you can talk to
Mm-hmm.
that have been through it, because we understand in a different way.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I think that, again, and I've said this over and over again, every woman's journey is different. Everything
Yeah.
that they experience, we're all unique in our own way. We literally are, this word has just been overused so much. We are snowflakes. We're all totally and absolutely different. I experience pain in a different way than you do. I see things emotionally different than another woman does. And I think recognizing that and being able to be self-aware, because when you're in the medical field, doctors are like, well, normally people, when we put the IV in with the medication, you're going to feel it burning right away. Well, I didn't feel that, they were doing the anesthesia or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, there's something wrong with me. I'm not feeling that. No, I'm just different. I didn't feel the pain until it was further up in my arm. That's just how it is. So I think that rather than generalizing, approaching things, from a friend basis or anything like that, is typically this is what we've seen. It's not, to say that you're going to experience the same thing, but here's what's happened to other patients we've worked with, or here's what's happened to other people I've worked with. And I think being able to be open and communicate like that is going to be hugely beneficial to everyone.
I totally agree. I think that's really important. And it's really, about just the value of being a listener,
Mm-hmm.
and not trying to fix
Yes.
things. And that's the other thing is, because that was the other thing is, again, being kind of an animal body, our body knows like its life is at stake.
Mm-hmm.
And so I noticed that when I was going through my first year of healing, that my brain wasn't super functional,
Mm-hmm.
like it didn't really want to think about things. It didn't really want to make business happen.
Right.
And I know that from the work I do, that's the animal instinct is not important right now to think about these things, just focus on healing the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was I wanted to, so anyway, that just the listening and being able to be there for somebody and not the fixing thing. And I have a quick little story about that. It was again in between the two cancers. I was teaching a program. It was just a 1-day leadership with the horses program,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman just, everybody has their turn to kind of have a one-on-one session where they can kind of just really look at something that is challenging in their life. And so this woman just stepped up and out of the blue was like, yeah, I have really, like stage 3 or stage 4 breast cancer. I'm the mother of 3. She's in her early 30s. And, you could just feel everybody's stomach just drop. Right. And there was a lot of new observers. And so a lot of people that don't know how to listen and don't know how to share
Yeah.
how they feel yet. And so I'm kind of like trying to hold the space and protect her. And I kept hearing her, and I finally heard like, maybe she didn't want, she says, everybody, my husband, my family, everybody wants me to do the next surgery, the next this, the next that. And I couldn't feel it in her,
Mm-hmm.
but she wanted to do it. And I said, I'm here for you no matter what.
Right.
If you feel like you're ready to move on, and that's okay with me. I'm just here to support you. in your stand? Like, how do you want to hold your time now? And she was just broken to tears. She was so relieved just to have somebody listen and not try to fix her.
Right.
The next healing thing. Mm-hmm. Again, that's just more pressure. That's like another work stress thing you have to do. And not even, so there was so much pressure on all of her, from her family to like, fix. Like she could never just really feel.
Right.
You know, and so that was huge for her. And she actually ended up going on and fighting for herself for many more years. So
yeah. Again, it comes back to, just being a personal journey, that it has to be the person's decision on how they want to move forward. And if they don't. So, well, just to wrap things up a little bit, I am absolutely honored and blessed to have you on today, because I think we covered quite a bit of very important topics for people, and just a whole new perspective to look at. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to do this podcast, because like I said, that if I can help one person, I'm so happy about that. If I can help many, that's even better. But just letting that one woman know that it's okay, what she's dealing with and what she's going through, is hugely important to me. And I'm incredibly grateful to you, Ariana, for joining us today, so that we could really dive into this self-help and talk about the stress aspect of everything.
Well, I just want to thank you. I mean, I've got butterflies in my stomach because I just feel so, I'm almost going to cry, because I feel so happy that what you're doing to help women, to have a resource out there, and different options, like you said, like, and that you're not alone.
You're not. It may not be a family member, it may not be a significant other, but there is always someone there that can help you and will be with you through all of it. And that's what the Boob Report is all about. And eventually I'll be across the country, and that'll be awesome, so that I can help women in every state. That's my goal, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. Well, any way I can support you. You're doing such a great piece for all of us.
Oh, I so appreciate it. Thank you again for joining us. And we will see you guys soon on the next episode of the Boob Report podcast. Okay. Such an amazing time with Ariana. We have links and information where you can learn more about her and her work on our website, and possibly how to pronounce her last name correctly at www.theboobreport.com/podcast episode 10 show notes. And a very big thank you to all of you for spending time with us today. Be sure to like and follow us, and definitely share the podcast with your friends. You can become an active listener and support this podcast by clicking on the podcast link on our website at theboobreport.com. Take care.